that'll be an indication to all of those that usually participate to speak up because we don't have a PA system today, so I'm sure you can speak loudly enough. As I was saying, we're so very pleased to have such a good turnout on this very special occasion. And although Dad's birthday isn't for a few weeks yet, I think it was the greatest reason, the greatest excuse we could have to have a party. So we're having a party today in honor of my dad and the beginner of so many people that are present here today. I'm going to call first off on one of the sons to do a little reminiscing, and we got a few other people. And if there's someone here today that think you would like to say something that's not an immediate member of the family, I have a column here that says others. So once in a while I'll ask for others, and if you just put your hand up, why we'd just love to have you come up and say a few words. So with that, I'll call on my brother Darrell to bring the first comment. Darrell?
Here we go, Dad. Should we tell the grandchildren how bad Dad really was?
Yeah! Let's hear it.
He's got great-grandchildren and grandchildren and us children, and Dad's got a big family. And of course, I think as we all get to be adults and parents, we're all the tough guys or the mean guys, and maybe that's expected of us. So, and I suppose Howard figured I should maybe talk a little bit because I've been here with Dad and Warren for just about 60 years, growing up and working with him. And I felt it's really been a pleasure to me to be able to see him every morning. A little about Dad. One thing he's not a pessimist. He's an optimist, and he's a positive thinker. You never see him say, well, I don't think we can do it. That wasn't in his vocabulary. If you don't believe it, talk about optimists. He was down to his sister's 100th birthday in St. Paul here a couple years ago, and his nephews asked him, Chris, you're doing pretty good. How long are you going to do it? Oh, he said, Moses made it to 125. He's kind of a workaholic, and that kind of rubs off on the rest of us, and I guess that don't hurt. It keeps the boys out of mischief. So he kind of kept us busy, and I know at about 10 he gave me a steering wheel with 4 wheels on it, and I've been there ever since. As to how his discipline was, I don't really remember, but I know one time in particular, and I don't know what the reason was, but he, in the house, he got up and took after me. And of course, I knew where that bedroom was, and I under the bed. And when he was on one side, I was on the other, and I was hanging on them ribs, you know. And after a while, I think he laughed and left. I never did anything. We 3 sons grew up, and as we got to wanting to go out, my dad would say, you can take the car, here's a few dollars, where a few dollars went a long ways, but he said, don't take anybody with you, and I don't want to catch you in the liquor store. So I think it was good advice. I'm glad to pass it on to mine, because the world has changed a lot in the last 30 years. Well, some things we'll never forget. And I don't like to get into politics, but hey, I thought of that when I came down here. Maybe we should get a little politics in here. We had World War II, and we had an old 41 Plymouth, as I remember, and getting pretty old, and Dad, during the war, he ordered a new car, and I think it was a Hudson. I think it was going to cost $850. Well, anyway, the war got over and the car came. But the car came and Dad didn't get it. And I said, Dad, the war was good to you. You made some money during the war. Now why don't you spend it in buy the car? And my father said this, blood money. And I've never forgot that. Because during the war, we did have blood money. And that's what we don't make any more of that. I'll never forget that. Over the years, we've had differences of opinions. I and Dad, we worked together all the time here. And usually, when we had our different ideas, I usually lost in the end. Once in a while. When I and Marge got married, Dad was living in town, I moved to town, and he would come up to the farm, and we'd make him dinner, and if he wanted to work late at night, which he always did, we'd make him supper, or bring it out to the field or something. But as my 6 kids came along, why, the meals got to be pizza and chili. And that was the end of Dad's eating with us. I did find out, though, that father of mine did have a soft heart. And it was during the Korean War. Warren, I don't know if he's here yet. Warren was in an army tank in Korea on the front line. And I was going to college, came home, got my deferment, was here for a year or so, got married, and then Diane came along, our first Warren, and I think Warren was still in the army yet. And then I got drafted. Well, I had a trick knee, and so I was 4F. I got the 4F card in the mail. Dad was out on the back 40 to home there. I don't remember what he was doing. And I went out to Dad, and I showed him a sheet of paper. It said, you're 4F. That's the first time I seen tears on my dad's eyes. He was pretty happy. We've, as you know, Dad, over the years, he done most of the tractor work for Iron Warren. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the summer here. Once in a while, we'd go do it without his opinion, see, so we bought a 73 tractor, and boy, he really liked that. About a week later, here come the plow. With 6 bottoms and about 30 feet long, and Dad said, oh, God, you really done enough. But when he made one round, it was all over. He just smiled, and he went to Pelican and plowed Howard Farm, and plowed out of farm. If the neighbors needed help, he'd help them. Then we bought a Steiger for him to play with, and he rode that for quite a few years. Now, he's getting up to 88 years of age, and he's still driving it. And he's done all the combining too. Well, one day he'd been out there, and at noon I said, well, I'll go and talk to him, see how he's making out in the kitty troubles. Because after all, he's 88 years old. So I go out to the field, and normally when he just opens the door and you holler at him, how's it going? Fine, he slams the door and lets you clutch it. But this time, he opens the door, crawls down, walks out, and starts talking. I said, any problems? He said, no. And he said, have you heard the news? And I said, no, what? Well, he said, I'm getting married. I vaguely knew what was going on a little bit, but anyway, I said, when? He says, next week. This was on a Thursday noon. Monday they got the license and Friday they got married. That's how fast it was. Big days.
Did he
I
get
think
combine done?
That's when I lost my hired man, though. My hired man to work for nothing. And I can tell you, I had kidney beans out there this fall. Dad was about every 3 days, how you doing? You getting them out? I had soybeans out there. Boy, this summer there was nothing there. They just burnt up. Got close to harvest. Man, there's 30 bushel out there. He says, get them beans off. If you want a guardian, here he is. If you get behind, he'll tell you about it. Over the years, we've really enjoyed each other, and we've done a lot of traveling together. And, can't read it. If you read, okay. When we went down to Minneapolis, we took Dad and Angie along one time. I and Margie stopped in Clearwater and had a little lunch. Got down towards the cities, and them two were fooling around the Mexico. Anyway, they were picking on each other, and kissing each other, giving each other a bad time. And Daddy said, yes. I and Marge were laughing our head off. So all I say, Dad, is have more birthdays. It's been fun.
One of the things that I thought was kind of humorous, I want to share this with you, is hopefully my son will be here, my son will be here a little bit later. But one day they asked Grandpa to what he attributed his longevity. What was it that construed this long health that he had? You know what his answer was? Does anybody have any idea what his answer was to my son? Never eat anything green. So immediately there was no more green beans, lettuce, anything that was all this nutrition. Never eat anything green. One of the things that I believe has contributed to my dad's long health, just one of the things, is his curiosity. And any of you that know him well know that he has always been, will always be, an extremely curious person. When I was a child, he would be reading manuals on how to repair tractors, and he was always reading. I think he would have read every book in the library, and he had a chance to do that, time to do that. I distinctly remember going on a trip with Mom and Dad when I was about 13, and we were down in the southwest part of the country by the Grand Canyon. And if any of you have gone around the Grand Canyon, you realize how many stops there are, observation points around the Grand Canyon to stop and look out. Believe me, we stopped at every one. Because Mom and I would be sitting in the car and Dad would say, oh, here's another stop. Let's get out. The car would pull over. Mom and I would look at each other and go, okay. We'd get out dutifully and go over and stand and look over the Grand Canyon and look at how beautiful it was. It really was beautiful, but Dad knew it was beautiful. He wanted us to share it. Just an example of his curiosity. Another thing I think that perhaps is part of the strength here in Harper's Ferry is the community and all of you people. And my living in a small town, I guess I realize that same thing. We really are a community of friends and strength and support, and that's certainly part of life. Then the second thing that has kept him going is a young lady that we found out about how many years ago? Maybe 5 or 6 years ago? 6.5 years ago. And I have to share this with you, how we found out about Angie. My dad wrote me a letter, and Dad never wrote letters. Ever. He wrote a letter, and he said, you know, Gloria, I have been taking this lady friend out to dinner. We go to church on Sunday, and then afterwards we go out and have dinner. And I'm kind of reading between the lines thinking, Well, it was probably a month after that letter, that little note came in. It was a very short note, about 3 sentences in it. Yeah, we got a phone call, and it was, I'd like you to come up and meet somebody. Thereupon, we met Angie, and the rest is history, and you know how much we love Angie, and what a good job she does with her father. And we're very pleased to have you all here today.
Let's go now to one of the grandchildren. Maybe he's got a little different observation, but I'd like to call him our oldest son, Brian.
Well, I'm going to share a couple of things. Can you hear me in back? I talk louder than him. But I got something for your kids. It turns out, Lori was just talking about how Grandpa's a great reader. Well, now I know why he did something for me or to me. I'm not sure which it was exactly. But I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I remember 2 things about Grandpa. We went to his house in town, and he had a pool table. I couldn't believe that. I mean, have a pool table. I wondered what kind of grandpa he really was, you know. Everybody told me he was honest and all that kind of stuff, but I thought, this is really something, he has a pool table. So that's one thing I remember about Grandpa. Grandpa has a pool table. I thought that was really pretty different, pretty special, pretty neat. But that's not the main thing that I remember about one thing Grandpa taught me. And maybe it came because of all the reading he did. He's got a real strong background in doctoring. Maybe some of you know that. And he must have been ahead of his time on one thing. When I was young, I remember we were leaving his house, and he was smoking a cigar. I don't know, how many remember he smoked cigars every once in a while? Well, I remember that. And he smoked cigars. Okay, at least my dad didn't smoke, but Grandpa smoked cigars once in a while. I didn't know what to think about that either. You know, cigars and the pool table, I thought probably went together. But we were about ready to leave his house, and I remember standing there at the front door, and he says, "Hey, you want to try something?" Now, I didn't know what he was thinking about or talking about. He said, "Here," he stuck out his cigar, he said, "Here, take a puff." Mom and Dad are standing right there and they don't say anything, so they're not helping me. So I said, well, I guess it must be okay. They're not saying no, so I take it and inhale, swallow it, blah. And I must turn green, red, purple, you name it. But he's the guy that cured me from ever wanting to smoke. But it was bad. If any of you kids ever think you want to try it, forget it. It ain't worth it. And I don't know if you knew that it was bad for you then, but we all hear about how it's bad for you today, but it was as bad then as it is now. He's the guy that taught me never to try it. It ended right there. So thanks, Grandpa. I appreciate it. I'll live longer because of it. I know.
One of the other grandchildren, and maybe as a grandchild, spent as much or more time with Grandpa than anybody else. Harry?
Well, I was just informed to say something, so I guess I'll stand up here and make a fool of myself. But all the years that I grew up on the farm, I remember eating many meals with Grandpa, and I always remember him being in the tractor or got a little bit older, we got this New Holland combine out there. That was the first one that I was really able to help on, the big yellow machines. That big monster just intrigued me. He's out there combining, and I'm out there helping him grease and driving trucks around, and he's doing the work. And he broke down, and I was helping him do the fixing on it. Pretty soon I was just feeling pleased as punch. When I went to college, I kind of wanted to come home. I got this place back here doing what I want to do, partly because Grandpa instilled the love of God's green earth in my heart. And that's one reason I'm out here. Back when I was about 15, now I must have been 16, 17 years old, one Christmas I got a card from Grandpa, and geez, it was in his own handwriting. I couldn't hardly believe I got it. I phoned him in the first place, and I got the card home. I saved it. One of the few things a person ever does save from his childhood. And there was a card that said to Terry, to the boy, who ran all Grandpa's errands from the farm and to the field and back. All my love, Grandpa. Give me $10. I'll treasure that as long as I live here. But we get back to that. Well, you know, how many people here got something from Grandpa that he actually wrote? I'm telling. I'm sure he doesn't remember that. And then, as that yellow combine got older, it was wearing out a little bit, so it seemed like every time we got to different fields, we were replacing this bearing or fixing this thing that was wrapped up or something. And so I pretty much knew the ins and outs of fixing that combine, tearing it apart. Well, here a few years ago, Grandpa's kind of out of the farming picture, and Dad and I are out doing the farm ourselves, and we work around the clock on combines, combining corn beans and stuff. One night I come home dead tired, and I was laying there in bed sleeping. All of a sudden I woke, well, I wasn't awake, I was dreaming, and I said, now, Doc, Grandpa, I said, let me fix the combine. Jan said, what is going on? I woke her up, startled. So I was getting to the point where Grandpa didn't need to be around anymore. He'd already taught us and taught me how to handle problems when they occurred. And I guess for instilling that love of farming and running equipment and being with my family, I got to give him all the praise in the world. He's made me and my family what it's going to be for the next 40 years. Thank you all for letting me talk out here.
We had Brian and Sherry, our two oldest children, with us. We went by train from Parkersburg to Chicago. We spent a few days in Chicago. We did the usual sightseeing, went to the Museum of Science and Industry, anything that we could see that would be meaningful and a learning experience for all of us. We had an evening that was free, and maybe most of you have seen the movie, It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. And that was just showing in Chicago at that time. So we thought we should go see it. And we went, and needless to say, we nearly split laughing. But the most entertaining part was, I don't think we've ever heard Grandpa laugh as hard as he did at that movie. And we enjoyed it so much, I think, because he was also enjoying it immensely. And from Chicago, we went on to Flint, Michigan. We had ordered a car and picked it up in Flint. Went through the assembly plant, which was also an interesting experience. Then drove the new car home. It was a delightful trip. We have many, many happy memories of it. And thanks for coming with us. Happy birthday, Grandpa.
Since I grew up in Pelican Rapids, Minnesota, I wasn't around Grandpa as much, and my times with him were more limited. But I thought I'd share an experience that I had with him as well as some of my cousins and uncles on a fishing trip. This was back, I believe, in 1975. And they talk about Grandpa and the things that are significant for him, and probably one other one is the fact that he's a good risk taker. Maybe not a good risk taker, but a risk taker nonetheless. So Grandpa was willing to take this risk and go on this fishing trip with a lot of young, strapping nephews of his and a couple of his sons and a good friend of his, Ben Cedar. So we made the trip up to, we were fishing on Lake Winnipeg. And of course, you all know Lake Winnipeg is pretty good size. So when we fished, we'd leave real early in the morning before the wind would come up, so we could run about 40 miles up the lake and fish on this river. So we got out there the first morning. I had been up there for like 3 days with my Uncle Darrell, my dad, brother, and some others. And then about 3 days later, my Uncle Warren and some of his boys and Ben Cedar and Grandpa came up. And they were going to finish the fishing trip up there, and then we were all going to take all the gear back with us. So the first morning out, we headed up the lake. Nice, smooth as glass, good sailing. Warren was driving Darrell's little 16-foot aluminum runabout, and we had a tri-hull boat, and we took off up to this river, and we're fishing up there. And Ben Cedar, he just had trouble all day. I mean, all he would do is snag his fishing line all the time. Ben, we just kind of, after a while, we gave up on him. I just said, all right, Ben, and he worried about losing this lure. We're telling him, cut the line, Ben, get back to fishing. And he's working with the lure, so I said, okay, we'll just leave him alone. So we're fishing, you know, doing okay, and it's coming towards the end of the day. And it had gotten breezy that day, and we'd usually wait till late in the afternoon, the wind would calm down, and then we'd go back. Well, the wind wasn't calming down any. And in fact, to compound things, Uncle Warren got sick, had the flu. So he was sick, and we're up here 40 miles from camp, and I'm going like, I don't think we want to spend the night out here. We better think about getting home. Well, about that time, Ben finally gets his line loose. Hey! Well, once you know, he pulls in a 16-pound northerner. He's a happy fisherman. So he really inspired us, going, wow, we got to do some more fishing. So we're out there fishing again. Finally, you know, we're deciding, well, I guess I took it upon myself. I had the bigger boat. I thought, well, we better get home. So, well, we got Warren sick. So we put Warren in my boat. Grandpa and Ben are in the front of the boat, an open front end boat. And Chris and Clark, I believe, and I think Dean were in the runabout. And they're following behind us. And we have to go down this river into the lake. Well, the wind's coming in against us. And as we go down into the lake, once you know, about 50 gallons of water pours over the bow of my boat. I'm starting to fill the boat up. Of course, Ben and Grandpa are in the front, and they take it full front, right on. And Ben knocks the wind out of him. It's so cold. Ben's up there trying to get his breath and getting water out. You know, he just cooked this whole, he must have taken 2 gallons on himself. And Grandpa's all wet, and we're finally getting down. We have so many rocks in the riverbed there.